And the heart of what I remember him saying, which I fully agree with, is in a real initiation, there's no going back. Like there's no going back. And this is why there's in these structured initiations, there's a metaphoric death.
In a world moving faster than our minds were designed to handle, mental health is becoming one of the defining challenges of our time. Welcome to Mental Health in a Modern World with holistic health practitioner Greg Schmaus. After overcoming severe anxiety and OCD in his own life, Greg dedicated the past decade to helping others heal. Over the years, he's facilitated thousands of sessions, guiding people back to peace, clarity, and a deeper connection with themselves. Each week, Greg shares powerful solo insights, conversations with leading voices in holistic healing, and immersive live coaching sessions that take you inside the healing process itself. New episodes every Friday. Follow the show and start reclaiming sovereignty over your mind in a modern world. Here's Greg.
Mike, welcome to the show, brother.
Dude, Greg, thanks for having me, my man.
We get to turn the tables a little bit.
Yes, sir.
I get to put you on the hot seat now.
Oh.
You know, where I'd love to start is your work has evolved a lot over the years. You've, initially started out in the athletic world, the kettlebell training, and you've really evolved into doing a lot more deeper men's work. And I would really love to hear what's inspired that transition and what really kind of brought you into this space of going from, athletics, competitive kettlebell, weight training into more of like the deeper men's work.
Yeah, man. Absolutely would love to dialogue on that. And yeah, I can't believe this is so, I'm again, so honored that I'm on your show. You've been on mine 4 or 5 times probably. So yeah, definitely the tables have turned, bro. And just really excited to be here, man. So, I mean, shit, I want to say plus or minus 15 years. Since I was 18, I was officially coaching, got my first personal training cert. And since then, it was as many certs as I can stack up, like many personal trainers, to learn as many skills, modalities to make me as dangerous and as useful as I could to the people I was working with. Early on, it was a lot of athletes. So I was a Division I strength and conditioning coach assistant for the University of Santa Clara, and then a few other colleges in the Bay Area, all different sports: baseball, tennis, volleyball, women's basketball. And I loved that domain. And what I would argue to say, part of what I enjoyed most about it was my mentor at the time. Their facility is now closed, but they had modeled their whole methodology and philosophy after Czech's teachings. And so at 17, 18, I came in there at 17, actually, to have that type of upbringing. Like I was doing strength and conditioning work, but also under the lens of the foundations of what I still to this day makes someone a truly badass man. Is health is the foundation for high performance. And so I loved competing. I loved working with athletes. What I will say as a side note, working with male athletes historically has been a pain in the ass. It was so much easier to work with female athletes from the sense like they listened a lot more. When I was working with guys, a lot more egos. Bench press wasn't even on the program, and they were trying to have side competitions in the back while we're running S&C workouts. But I loved performance, like absolutely loved it. And I loved working with guys, even though, like I said, there was tend to be a lot of side competitions going on. And over the years, as I started getting deeper and deeper in my own work as an athlete, as a coach, I started really realizing, man, there's so much more to this than what happens in the weight room. Way more. And it wasn't until I started working one-on-one with Czech that I started realizing in real time, as we were documenting every single day, morning heart rate, musculoskeletal system stress, limbic emotional stress, hormonal stress. Like we were mapping all those things, not using tech like an Oura Ring or a Whoop. I was doing it manually through a Google Doc and making these forms. And every single month when I would go down to Paul, he would, look at technique and how I was performing in competition. And we were simultaneously rehabbing an injury that no one could figure out. But we were also looking on a day-to-day basis of how were the other things as an athlete that I might not usually, or someone might not contribute to my performance, whether it's a fight between a family member, because I was in a family business at work, if I was going through a relationship challenge. And I saw all of those life stressors objectively affecting what was going on the graph, therefore the reflection of what was happening inside and in my numbers. And then as I started going deeper and deeper, I mean, Paul says, and you know this well, but if you don't know your dream, like find out what the nightmare is. And over time, my love for performance training and my identity as an athlete and as a coach, I actually started resenting it because I started feeling like, man, there's so much more to me. I have so much more inside, so much more I want to do than, quote, just being, I don't know, a kettlebell guy or a powerlifting guy. And so I had to go through my own identity crisis. And these last years, as I've really identified, what am I really here to do in this phase of life? Like, what am I meant to do? And at 30, I got that call. I went to out in the woods for almost 3-4 days. And I asked myself that question. What the fuck do you want to do, Mike? If you could do anything, what would you want to do? And over the course of 3-4 days, I just sat. I asked the question. I sat. I cried, I meditated, I journaled, I sat, I cried, I meditated, I journaled, I asked. And I kept going through this cycle. And at the end of it, I got clear. I said, I want to try. I want to try and see what my own brand or what my flavor, what's my heart telling me of how I can use my experience to guide men, whether it's living in greater responsibility, living in greater ownership, living in greater happiness, living more of themselves. And so that's a really brief encompassing of a bit of the journey, but it started with performance, and then it really has now transformed into like, man, I would do this stuff for free any day of the week. Like, I have a family to provide, and it feels so good to be doing this work.
Yeah, beautiful. You know, I had the same experience working with Paul where over time, especially because of his system, you can see the interconnection of all things, how the emotions and the breath and the food and everything is interconnected. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. And so I really appreciate like how that was a real invitation into greater depth, beyond just the objective physical training. And as you've gotten into men's work, and you talk a lot about the masculine energy, I would love for you to define, because I love the way you define it. How does Mike define the masculine energy, and how does it differ from the feminine energy? Can you offer us a little definition of those two?
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate how you talked about it as energy, because that's one of the first things I think, in my experience, to unpack. And where this is not just like nice things to say out loud. Like, this is rooted in practice. This is rooted when you're in front of someone who's in their masculine, let's say, or in their masculine essence. It's something that's felt. And it's something that doesn't even need to be said. It's felt. And so the first thing to understand is, from an essence or an energy perspective, masculine and feminine are not genders. Like, take that off the table. And if we distill it down, the masculine or masculine energy or masculine essence is synonymous with stillness, with consciousness, with awareness, presence, integrity. It's the container that holds. I have a water bottle on my desk right here. This water bottle, like you just heard me hit that, it has integrity. It holds. What does it hold? It holds right here. Electrolytes right now are inside. But if I shake it around, there's water inside. And so the masculine, the greater someone's masculine, the more they have the ability to hold the contents of what's inside. And so the feminine, on the other hand, not gender related, because everybody has a masculine, everybody has a feminine. We have both. But the feminine is anything associated with thinking, feeling, sensing, emoting, action, anything associated with movement. And that's where some of the misconceptions can be, because we see men today who may be taking massive action and we say, oh, that's a man. But from an energy perspective, just because someone is taking action, they're not necessarily felt as more masculine. So the greater or the stronger, the more integrity someone's masculine, the more they can hold their own feminine feeling, sensing, emoting, as well as that of the people they're leading, their partner, their kid. My son, who you know, Luca, who's 3, is one honestly walking feminine. just he's sick right now. Literally, he's crying nonstop. He's just very emotional. He hasn't developed much of a masculine to hold his containers, which is why he relies on myself and Lauren to co-regulate, to hold him. Last night, he goes, it was so sweet. I was downstairs, and again, he's not feeling good right now. He's sick. And he goes, Papa, can you, my tummy hurts. He thinks because we let him have some strawberry ice cream this weekend at seeing grandparents. And he's like, I think I'm sick because I had strawberry ice cream. I was like, okay, bud, sure. He's like, will you make me feel better? I was like, oh man, it was so sweet. I was like, buddy, I'm so sorry you're feeling that way. Like, Papa will try. Why don't you just come here? And so he's, will you hold me? I go, yeah, buddy. So I just held him, and he was emotional in that moment. And I just felt him not only co-regulate, however, I felt him allowing me to hold his emotional expression, his wateriness. And like that, he just fell asleep.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. So those are, from a theme standpoint or just a good understanding, that would be masculine, feminine, at least as I define it and what I've learned.
Yeah. You know, one thing I would love for you to touch upon, I think this was on your podcast with JP Sears, where you guys were talking about these two extremes that we find men either falling into today, where, you know, generations ago or decades ago, a man was defined as like this tough guy. You're supposed to suck it up. You're not supposed to feel or express emotions. And then over the last few years, maybe last 10 years or so, it seems like there's also been the swing to the other extreme, which has been a little bit of like the feminization of men or like the emasculation of men. And so I would love for you to touch upon like how you've seen these two extremes play out, and what the Buddhists might call the middle way, or the path of integration, where you're able to stay in your power and your sovereignty, but you're also able to come with an open, expressive heart. I'd love for you to kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, man, I love that. I mean, I think, like, if we're to talk about the extremes, like, you're exactly right. And still, like, yeah, that might have been the theme years ago, but there's still that perpetuated today. Like the alpha man, the over-indexing of, I can't show any pain. If I show pain, then I'm weak. If I'm weak, then I'm vulnerable. If I'm vulnerable, it's dangerous. And that's as existential for many men. And so there is a lot of, quote, men's work, or what creates a man or what can cultivate a man, is through grinding, pushing, hardening. So there's that extreme. And then, like you said, on the other extreme, because we've gone so far for so long, there's been this desire and craving for so many men who especially are deep feelers. Like, I would say so many men actually feel much more intensely than they think or give credit to. They just don't know what to do with the emotional intensity that they feel. They don't know how to navigate it. And so what do they usually do? They usually externalize it aggressively. So they get reactive and lash out. They'll internalize it. They'll turn it on themselves. And that's where we get like a really loud inner critic, like, fuck, you fucked up. Why'd you keep doing that again? That was me, and has been historically. There's guys who are numb to it. So they're numb to their own emotions. And then there's the one who just stuff it down. And so you have all of this melting pot of intense emotions, largely, or again, being numb to it. But then what do I do with it? Because what was modeled Because how do we learn? You know this better than everybody. But and as I'm watching Luca, like I'm seeing this day in, day out. He's like studying us so much. And it may be, yes, in part what we say. And what I'm really observing with him and his behaviors, it's so much, yes, what we say, but what we do. So what he sees, what he hears, what he feels, and then what he intuits. Those create in our environment so much of what he's learning and downloading from us, from, Lauren and myself and whoever he's around. And so most men were not modeled. I wasn't. Like, what does healthy masculinity feel like? What does it actually look like for a man to, be able to, I think you even said this at one of the retreats, but to, about an emotional, expression I was having. I was experiencing some degree of, I think my grandfather had just passed, as an example. And I think in the circle, there was a father and son, and they were having a beautiful connection, and it really brought up a lot for me. And my grandfather, I think, had passed just a few days before. And so I was feeling really deeply. And in that, this was all like, I wasn't trying to do any of this, but I remember just sitting and feeling an overwhelming wave of emotions and sitting as I would just normally sit, just sitting tall, strong spine. That's masculine spine, having a spine, holding ourselves, and then also allowing this flow of tears to happen, not judging it, not saying, why am I crying, making up a story, being with whatever's coming through and letting it happen. So the not knowing what to do with the intensity of emotion, I see as a real problem for most guys. And what's been modeled from, like what you were saying, over feminizing men. And then what does that lead to? Oftentimes it leads to, I would say, overly watery, not as a judgment, but literally as an unstable force. Like many guys that I coach will come home and they want to step into that masculine. They want to step into allowing their female partners to soften around them, to melt around them. But they come home and they don't know what to do with their emotions. And so their wife or partner says, I want you to feel safe to express. I want more vulnerability from you. And then they just dump on them. And then they get scared. They're like, they watch their partner being like, that was a little too much. And so again, the modeling hasn't been there. And so a lot of guys have gone extreme in that, but they don't really have a spine. That's why you need both. The integration of both is absolutely critical.
Yeah. Beautifully stated. One of the emotions that has been the hardest for me to connect with over the course of my journey has been anger. And I've noticed that in the past, there's been a fear of my own anger. I know for me, a lot of it goes back to my childhood where I experienced my dad's anger as either violent or unsafe. And so when I have anger rise up inside of me, it reminds me of that lack of safety that I experienced as a child. But I've started to see how detrimental it is when myself or men divorce themselves from their own anger. And so I'd love for you to touch upon why men having, or anyone for that matter, just the masculine, why it's so important to have a healthy relationship with anger for us to really be able to, you could say, access our power in a healthy way.
Yeah. Hearing what you just shared, and me and you have worked together and been buds for a good handful of years, and it's so like striking how many elements of our stories overlap. And that's one of the things that's so beautiful about having good men in one's life. It's how we mirror each other. I can learn so much from your life, but as you were speaking, I mean, to a T, in my own way, like that's how I experienced growing up. And so for me, I was so afraid of my anger and what it would mean, because I thought, if I'm angry, the story that I was creating in my head and didn't even know it is, I'm a bad boy. I am bad. And not just I did something bad. Yes, that's true, but literally like a deep, deep character flaw. Like it was not okay to feel a connection with my anger. And so, but if you asked me at the time, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, something like that, 15 years ago, maybe, if you would have asked me, like, Mike, do you get angry? I would have probably said like a little bit, but like, no, man, I'm not an angry guy. Like I'm not really angry. And now when I look back, even in journal entries or things, like I didn't realize how much, like when I look at some of the challenges that I've had from relationship stuff, being cheated on, etc. I was like, damn, I had a fucking good reason to be angry. Holy shit. But my association again through what was modeled was that's not okay. And so how did that impact me personally? I went much more in the realm of being the peacemaker. That if everybody's okay, like if the harmony is maintained, then we're okay. And it wasn't until I worked with a mentor, a shaman out in the UK, Yakov, the guy who taught me the shamanic drum, where he was like, to your point, there's so much power, Mike, in your anger. And honestly, I still think to this day, there's still, and I've done so much work on it, and I still know there's more for me there. There's more that I can learn from my anger because I felt it in a healthy way. And when it shows up and I really use it to access that power, it's protective. It's a strong boundary of what is my yes, what is my no. And when I can own that, like boundaries are meant, yes, to keep people out, right? If I have a boundary, it's to protect it, to keep people out. But the boundary is also meant to keep what I love in, right? Like if I mean, here's an extreme scenario, but if someone were to go up to my wife and do something, I don't know, grab her hand or I would physically protect her, right? I would be keeping her in, I'd be keeping that out, but I'd be keeping my kingdom, my family, my home, my heart. I would be protecting that. And so I had no concept of that. And I only viewed, in very simple terms, anger as aggression. But I didn't know that anger could be used as assertiveness, as there's so much energy in anger. Like if we know how to use it and be with it, passion. Like my mom and dad are Sicilian. Lauren's family's mainly like German, Austrian, and she loves my family because it's hilarious. It's literally like my big fat Greek wedding, but Sicilian style. And if you walked in the room, you'd be seeing hands flying, people yelling, like hugs, kisses, like really aggressive, like not aggressive, but like really in there. And if you didn't understand Sicilian, you'd be like, man, everyone's yelling at each other. Everyone's really upset. And it's like, no, that's love. That's how they transmit energy. And so one, connecting with that passion, power, protectiveness, boundaries, that can be so useful for a man, especially for one's purpose when things get hard. The warrior, when things get hard, like what are you willing to not just sacrifice, but how far are you willing to go for something that you believe in? What's the hill you're willing to die on? That would be in the realm for me of anger. If I don't know that, or a man doesn't know that, then it's so easy with technology and all the simple, how easy things are today. Dude, it's so easy just to sit on the couch. Why? Why would I get up? Why would I don't know, do something that betters my life? Why would I contribute? So all of those things, for me, are in the realm of anger. And it's just reframing or having a deeper understanding of that. And probably the deepest part of that is allowing oneself permission to go there.
Yeah.
And that's even still truly, not saying that because it sounds good, but truly that's still something I still know there's so much that I can learn in a healthy way from my own anger.
Yeah, I love that. And, one thing that was coming up for me that I'd love to explore for a moment, a law in physics that we've all heard is energy can't be created or destroyed, only transferred. And so since emotions are energy, when we pretend like our anger is not there, that energy doesn't go away. It gets diverted into other outlets or other means. So I'm curious whether it's in your own personal life or even some of the men you've worked with, what have been some of the ways that that energy that actually was anger kind of got directed in other means, whether it's, for example, patterns of shutting down or patterns of addiction or, whatever it might be, compulsive patterns? Like, how have you seen that energy of anger get redirected in unhealthy ways when it's not being honored, if that makes sense?
Oh, dude, I love the question. Okay, so the first thing that comes up is from a language perspective, and I'm sure, yeah, you've heard me talk about this before, probably in one of the groups, but there's a pattern that we hear in just everyday talk. We call it soft talk. So soft talk are words that are softening, like maybe, kind of, I guess, probably, perhaps, I might, I could, I should. Those are all words, softening words that create ambiguity. They create, I would say, untrustability at times. They create uncertainty. And so, one of the biggest challenges that we have with men today is one, they're isolated, they're disconnected from their hearts and from other people close to them. Even if they're surrounded by people who love them, there isn't that genuine connection. But largely, like, I experience many men as flat. And this isn't a judgment. This is just what I'm experiencing in coaching and what I'm seeing. There's a flatness to them. And when you have a dialogue, what you'll hear a lot is these soft talk words. And so I'll give an example of a sentence just off the cuff. Like if I asked, I don't know, what do you want to do this next year? Like, what's some of your goals for 2027 or for the rest of 2026? You might hear something like, I've always wanted to help people, but I wasn't sure what that could look like. I enjoy nursing, but maybe I'm too late. I guess maybe this might happen for me. Maybe it won't. I think maybe I have an issue around this. I'm wondering if I should start at some point in 3 years. So when you hear that, I just rattled off the cuff just a bunch of soft talk words, and likely you wouldn't likely believe that man that he's going to actually do that and see that through. But if I said, I want to help people, here's 1 or 2 professions I'm thinking about or I'm looking at, I'm evaluating, even stronger, I'm evaluating. My goal is in 18 months to start the process of going to whatever trade school to learn that thing to be in that job. It's very different. And so what I tend to see is there's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of wateriness, and not enough of just decisiveness in language. And that can keep people flat. Like, when's the best time to start? Anything. Now. Like right now. So if we can start being mindful, and if someone hasn't looked at that, one of the easiest place to look, if that is you or if you're listening, it can be hard to catch in our daily language because it's so habitual and so repetitive. But look at your emails, look at your text, and start looking for these words that create, again, ambiguity, uncertainty, a lack of taking ownership and responsibility. If we eliminated, or at least, because there is a time and a place for using soft talk words, but if we just intentionally reduce those by 20, 30, 40%, I would imagine you would almost have the same flip experience of feeling more confident, of taking more clear and decisive action. So that's one. Does anything come up for you before I go to what's coming up next? But anything come up for that?
No, what I was just hearing is that when we disconnect from anger, we disconnect from power. And so it seems like we're more susceptible to those soft talk tendencies. And I can see it in myself, And so we don't have access to our own power. That's kind of sounds like how our language starts to express itself.
If you hear, like, this is also why, if you think of a lot of CEOs or people who are executives or people who are in leadership positions, one of the things that, so if there's a leader, just by the name of that, there's also people who follow, right? A leader, someone who follows. A leader is usually someone in a position of some way, shape, or form, a position of power, right? There comes responsibility with that. But if that leader, like, would you want to follow someone into battle who wasn't owning their power, who didn't
course not.
feel? Absolutely not. I'm like, dude, I'm not laying down my life for this dude. No way. I can't trust him. He doesn't even know who he is. So that, and not from an arrogant place, but a real grounded place, like a real grounded power. So yes, difficulty accessing power for sure. I'm seeing a lot of, or a fair bit of, just addictive tendencies. So I'm seeing it a lot in the realm of porn. I'm seeing it a lot with, I mean, guys going to massage parlors and feeling a lot of shame around that. I'm seeing it with the going along with the power piece, just a lack of drive. I'm seeing it with a lack of leadership in relationship. And that can be really painful. And also, I mentioned this earlier, but like feeling isolated, like really withdrawing into oneself, shutting down and isolating, which is very different, as you know, than solitude. I think solitude is absolutely, it's medicine for men. But when we're isolated, that's when it can become really destructive.
It's probably why they say that a lot of depression is anger turned inward.
Mm.
You know, I was in a recent ceremony, and one of the things that came through to me, which was really beautiful, because as you know, I do a lot of work with archetypes, is the archetype of the knight and the archetype of the king.
Mm.
And this insight that came through was that a knight is someone that wears armor but no crown. And a king is someone that wears a crown but no armor. And when that came through, I actually thought of you.
Wow.
As one of the men in my life that truly wears a crown with no armor. And so I would love to hear your thoughts and reflections on what it means to wear a crown with no armor and what it means to wear an armor but no crown. I'm just curious what comes up for you there.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing, man. Jesus, I'm gonna sit with that. But I mean, it's interesting, like, when you were talking about that, like the first thing, a king is someone who wears a crown but no armor, like immediately, like I felt my heart open and expand. I mean, that's stepping into, as I continue to grow, my own version of what a king means to me. Like that is what I would say I would strive to do. Someone who's willing to take greater and greater levels of responsibility and accountability for his life and the people that are affected by my life and my choices, which are for sure my community, the people I serve, and most closely my family. Like my family is my most intimate kingdom that I'm here to serve at the deepest level. And with that responsibility, like my choices have ripples, and accepting that, acknowledging that, and what a gift as well. And so the crown is for me taking ownership and accountability and responsibility for the life that I'm creating for me, for my family, and those that quote unquote follow me or that I'm here to serve. And then I love the no armor piece because it's not something that feels at all arrogant. It really feels so heart connected and like, this is me. Like, this is me. I'm here to be me and show up as I am. All colors, all shapes, not trying to be anybody else, but really leading. I mean, it's so wild. So I rarely ever wear this shirt, but it's the Men of Movement, the retreat logo. And the signal for the tagline is lead from the middle. And there's buffalo on it. Like, the lead from the middle, which just came up organically, was I mean, it's multiple: lead from the heart, lead from one's center, the ability to, the willingness to at times lead from the front, the willingness to step back, lead from the back, and let others lead, and then also the willingness to be in the center with everybody going through the shit. And so the king without any armor for me is the king who leads from the middle, his middle, and honors that, and doesn't see, like someone would say, if he's not wearing any armor, he's weak or he's vulnerable. And I would say, fuck yeah. And he's also, that vulnerability is a strength if it's wielded with integrity and with groundedness.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. When I was listening to you, what I kept really feeling was that the way you were describing it is the crown is the accountability, and the no armor is the availability. And you know, I hear you speaking as someone that is taking full accountability, but is also so available at the same time, which is really just a beautiful combination. You know, in the realm of spirituality, I'm sure you have found this to be the case as well. There's so much of this energy of going up and out. But what I really appreciate about your work is the going down and in, the embodiment. And so what I'd love to explore a little bit, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, is really approaching spirituality as a practice of embodiment, and how you've seen spirituality as more of a practice of escape with a lot of people, or almost like in a dissociative fashion. Because one of the things I've really appreciated about your work is really the focus on bringing consciousness back into the body, rather than riding a wave of consciousness to leave the body.
Yeah, man. I mean, this, going back to like the buffalo, right? Like there's the buffalo is the totem that I've really resonated with so deeply. And when when I feel at least into the energy of the buffalo, dude, it is just, I mean, it's still, it is grounded, it is heavy, right? It moves as a pack. And so I've really realized that, especially largely through, I think it came through my experience with plant medicines. And in those spaces and in those circles, largely my early experience was, and maybe to some extent for sure myself too, was using those to escape and go outward. And then I started realizing, I was like, fuck, man, like I'm speaking personally, like I'm a physical being. One's physicality, connection to our senses, to our bodies, like that's why I love, lifting things with my hands. So I feel like I've always felt that connection. And a lot of times in those circles, or even sometimes even in meditation, we can use these practices as escapes, like you were saying, to go outward. But I started really realizing, I was like, wow, if I taught myself how to bring the insights, the awareness, what was out here, and bring them down into my roots, into my feet, and actually live them in my life, what could happen? Which is why, like, I also, for me personally, I bring my family into a lot of my work, because they're the reminder for me of why I do this. One of the reasons, not the only, but one of the reasons. And so to be embodied means, for me at least, to take what's out there or in here in the head and bring that down so it's felt, like truly, truly felt, and the transmission of that. Like, I think, I don't remember the stat, but this is why body language is so important. But it's like when you walk into a room, or when I walk into a room, or someone walks into a room, before you even open your mouth or I open my mouth, they're taking in information. And I could be saying, and I've worked with clients, and for me, truly, they're some of the hardest to work with. I'll just like say that, when they have all of the spiritual lingo, like they sound super good, But then when you look at their life, it's not reflective of what's coming out of their mouth. And that it can be really sneaky, like really sneaky, and for me, hard to work with, because like on surface level, like again, they've got all the right words, but then you're like, but then why do you keep having these repetitive patterns? Like, why are you still struggling with this if you know and you have this great connection, you get these downloads and we're all one? It's like, yes, and like, how's that affecting your relationship? How's that affecting your father? And how's your patience? How quickly do you fly off the handle? So for me, the embodiment is bringing it into the body so it can be felt. So if I'm talking about presence, you can feel me as presence. If I'm talking about groundedness, you can feel me as groundedness. Just as an example, if I were to talk like this, like, hey, Greg, it's really cool to be on your podcast today. I'm super grateful and honored. That versus, Brother Greg, dude, it's so awesome to be on your podcast today, man. I'm so fucking honored. Like those two sentiments, almost verbatim the same, but one, the register of my voice is lower. I took a deep breath in, I paused. When I was sharing that, I was putting my awareness into my feet. I was like, okay, feel your feet, Mike. Like feel the ground, and also hold half of my attention, my awareness on you and my feeling and my love for you. Like that would be grounded, loving presence for me, communicated through that energy. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that would be, and it's been so interesting. I've been learning more and more and more about myself through witnessing the speed of speech and the tone of which I'm coming from. And those two things have been really helpful for me to identify practically when I'm starting to spin up in my head or go outward, whether it's a spiritual thing or not. And then when do I experience myself as most embodied, as most grounded? And when I bring that to my wife, Lauren, like I can immediately sense and witness the shift in her. Like what me coming from a lower register, feeling my feet, feeling her, slowing it down. It's actually not even, it was a game. I was like, let me just test this out. And it's like, wow, she's expressing more. I'm seeing her like eyes and her face start to soften. And it was like, wow, how I'm carrying and embodying whatever it is that I'm doing in that moment has an effect on the people around me, whether they realize I'm doing anything or not.
Beautiful. This morning I was in my meditation practice, and, our teacher and mentor, Paul Chek, taught me years ago how to work with power animals.
Mm.
And so it's part of my morning practice. And two power animals that came to me this morning were the lion and the mouse. And the lion showed up in my throat, which I thought was a very interesting place for the lion to show up. And basically what it says is, I show you the power or lack of power that's carried through your words based on whether you're truly embodying what you're saying. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. And it obviously came up in this, podcast with what you were just sharing. And the mouse showed up as a deep listener. And the importance of really listening deeply. And, that was one of the things that, as a child, there were not great listeners in my household. And what I realized was someone who can deeply listen creates a sense of safety for those around him. And that when you can really listen and you're fully present, people feel safe in that container to express, to share, whatever it might be. And it was funny because the mouse showed up on my right ear, which is the masculine side. And it basically said, your name is Schmaus. I'm in your name. And so deep listening is actually part of the ways that you're healing your father's lineage, because deep listening was not really available in his household.
Mm.
And so, one of the questions I have for you is, meditation is a staple in my life. I know it's a staple in your life and a staple in the work that you do with the men that you work with. And a lot of people ask me, or, what is meditation? And there's so many answers that people, can say. It's a practice of awareness. But for me, meditation is the practice of sustained attention.
Mm.
And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about meditation and how the practice of sustained attention is so important with the masculine energy.
Mm. I think meditation is the quintessential masculine practice.
Yeah.
Stillness, observing, say like listening, sustained attention. And for me, it's a skill. Like meditation is the window into those skills. So going back to real quick, what we talked about of being felt more as masculine, the more still one is, the more that they're going to be experienced as masculine. Now that can also be like, there can be shadows of it, like being stoic, like or stonewalling, like being completely shut off, because it's, especially in relationship, like stillness will be experienced as being more masculine, but that there still needs to be a relational element to it as well. And I think that's where many men struggle, is they want to be in their center and the statue and still, but they lose again the connection to their heart and the relational component in any, interaction. But for me, I would say, right along with you, man, sustained attention, sustaining awareness. For me, it's 3 skills that it's really honing and developing, which is concentration. So the ability to focus more on what it is that we do want for longer periods of time. So that's your sustained focus. Then clarity. So having sensory clarity of what we're experiencing moment to moment, and really picking up a lot of the nuances in what we're thinking, feeling, emoting. So picking up all of the details and the richness that's there. And then the third is equanimity, or just say balance. So the ability to not get so sucked into something, right? And to treat things more like even keel, like that middle way. And so to be equally open to both pleasant and unpleasant experiences, and to ride that center line. So for me, meditation is the practice of that. And, what comes up a lot, I mean, I had 2 coaching sessions today. This comes up almost in every coaching session. Men who have difficulty with impulse control. Impulse control. And so they see I don't know, a beautiful woman, and they don't know what to do. They feel this surge, and so they got to go pick up on them. Or I feel this sexual urge, so I need to have some degree of completion and elimination. So I need to go masturbate, or I need to go get rid of that energy. Men who feel the impulse of, okay, I'm angry, and so I need to lash it out, or I need to shut it down, as opposed to being with these things. And so with the meditation practice, I think it's the most important thing, and one of the most important starting places for a man to be really skillful with how he manages his mind and his emotions. Because what ends up happening is, so let's say we're triggered by something. I don't know, someone flips you off when you're driving, right? You get triggered. You experience whatever that thing, the person giving you the middle finger, through your lens, through my lens of how we see ourselves in the world. The trigger creates this whole flood of chemicals, adrenaline, cortisol, like we want to fight, right? We get big, okay? And then what ends up happening is usually we go into thought story and make it mean something. Like, that's wrong, he's a bad man, whatever we end up meaning. And then we re-trigger ourselves back into that chemical cascade. And so, but we've lost our sense of grounded presence in that moment. We've merged with whatever that emotion is, and we've lost the ability to stay in that center. And with meditation, at least through, I mean, I know there's endless types of meditation, but from what we're talking about, sustaining awareness or sustaining attention, so many of us get pulled, and not just pulled, like snatched and taken. Like we are, oh, I like to say, like we're on the merry-go-round. Like we're just in our own thing, and we don't even realize it until much later or days later, and we keep re-triggering ourselves. So for meditation, the ability to concentrate, to stay in your center, to witness when you're getting pulled off, that is, I think it's the most, I would say it's the most important practice that a man can practice and skill he can develop.
Yeah. Do you think that the short form social media content has really compromised people's capacity for sustained attention? Have you seen that?
Oh, dude, so much.
Yeah.
It's designed to do the opposite of what we're talking about, that meditation can cultivate: stillness, presence, awareness, concentration, clarity. Like it's designed to rile us up, to create an emotional experience. It's the switching of things, how quickly things switch. Like the ability to just look, I don't know, at a bottle and just look at the detail of the bottle for 5 minutes would be excruciating for most men. And what one thing that demonstrates this is, we did a retreat 2 retreats ago, and it was more of a nature-based retreat. And the hardest thing that I recall for most guys, we did a mini vision quest. It was 5 hours. I think it was, I don't know, we went out around 10 p.m. plus or minus, maybe 9 p.m. So it's 5 hours alone. You find some area in this beautiful nature location, and you're being with yourself for 5 hours. And at the end of the whatever time it was, 2 a.m. or whatever, I went around the property, and it was pitch black, but sounding the drum for everybody to come back. And I checked in, like, how was your experience? The amount of men that commented, one, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But two, I was so ready to throw in the towel. Like, it was amazing that you sounded it when you did. I understand why, from food to technology and social media, to all of these things, it is so difficult for us to be still and be with ourselves, to be intimate, into me I see, intimate with ourselves. That very well may be the scariest thing for all of us, which for me, like from an athlete perspective, when I would identify something that was hard for me, I don't know whether it was a specific style of deadlifting, or I don't know, a specific type of bench press or a kettlebell movement. The thing that brought me into kettlebell sport, largely, I loved kettlebell sport, but I hated kettlebell sport. When I went into it, I was like, man, I grew up my whole life being a 1 rep athlete. 1 rep on the bench as heavy as you can, 1 on the dead, 1 on the squat. Very focused attention, very short. Kettlebell sport is Olympic movements, but done for 10 minutes unbroken. You can't set the bell down. And I remember thinking like, oh my God, that is horrible. That looks disgusting, or that just looks appalling. I have to do it.
Yeah.
So wherever there's that gap, there's also the potential for an opportunity. And if meditation is hard, or sitting still is hard, and you're having difficulty for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, if you can develop, or one can develop a new relationship with that and see the opportunity in that, I think so much can open up for us.
Yeah. Beautiful. And that brings me to the next topic that I'm really curious about, is the importance of organized initiation. Why is, and I say organized because a lot of times people look for initiations unconsciously, but why is it so important for, we'll say men, but this might be across the board. I think women have it built into their physiology more, through childbirth and things like that. But why is it so important for men to go through organized initiations?
Such a good question, man. Largely the proof is our entire conversation. like we can go like, what's the importance of it? And also when it's not there, what happens? I mean, you get, again, all the challenges of addiction. I mean, I think 80% of the suicides now are from men. Yeah, 80% of the suicides are now from men. You look at, there's so many challenges connecting with anger, being disconnected from our heart, depression, sad, like all of these challenges that men are facing. Not all of them can be traced back, but largely them not knowing themselves, them being afraid of being intimate with themselves. And what is the initiation when it's organized, when it's thoughtful, when it's intentional, when it's guiding men to their edge? I asked one of my mentors, Ted Ryder, who's been doing this work for a number of years, and I'm going to paraphrase, but this was a few years back. I said, how would you define initiation? And the heart of what I remember him saying, which I fully agree with, is in a real initiation, there's no going back. Like there's no going back. And this is why there's, in these structured initiations, there's a metaphoric death that needs to happen, whether, you know, I mean, cultures would do all sorts of different things, but a vision quest is an example of a structured initiation. Some tribes would cover you in fire ants, and you'd have to go to that brink of metaphoric death, and maybe even literal death too in some scenarios. Obviously, it's not what we want to do today, but like at the same time, we're stretching our capacity. It's in that space when there's no turning back. I just got chills. There's no turning back. That is what I think from a from a psychological perspective, creates the level of maturity and development that happens in these initiations. And so for, I don't know, thousands of years at specific ages, it was just built into the structure of a culture, of a tribe, because they knew without that, their leadership would be shit. We're going to be going to battle, to war, with complete lack of power, lack of grit. When as soon as it gets hard, people are going to run back. And so structured initiation, and when it's done through elders, through people who have done this, who have guided this, again, taking a man to his edge as safely as possible so that he can have a breakthrough in his level of maturity, in his worldview, in his ability to know, like really fucking know himself. Because when shit gets really hard in life, and it is, if you really don't know what your range is, from an emotional perspective, from a possibility perspective, a capability perspective, how am I ever going to really deeply trust myself? So forget about other people trusting me. If I don't trust myself, I mean, that's the worst of all. So the confidence to make a decision in life, to follow your dream or buy a house or start, like all of these things, again, going back to today, largely I experience men with the challenge of being flat, of being with their feet stuck in quicksand or in cement because they're so afraid of making a mistake. Well, what if it's not a mistake at all? What if you got to go out there to see what's there for you? Find your edge, find your edge, of course, in a safe way, but find your edge and do so around community and be guided and be held and be integrated. How is this going to impact your life for the better? Fuck, man. I think that is, I think that's the work that we're doing. Yeah. Is helping men and people, not just men, but initiate themselves intentionally, productively, and really with a purpose. And if they do, I don't think that they see themselves the same, and I don't think that they see the world the same after that, because there is no going back.
And this is what you offer at Men of Movement. So talk to us a little bit about the retreats that we have coming up.
Yeah, man, that is very much what we do. And I think one of the sentiments that you and I have heard, which is so beautiful, is many men come in with the sentiment or the saying afterwards, like, wow, I came in with who I thought I was or who I thought I needed to be for my family, for whoever. And I left with a much deeper knowing of who I am. And like, what's possible from there? Fuck. Infinite. And so the Men of Movement is a very structured 3-night, 4-day experience in Mount Shasta, where it's really, you could think of it like the arc of the hero's journey. So myself, you, Dr. Johnny, Tim Corcoran, who runs our sweat lodge, he's been doing men's work for over 50 years, getting elder wisdom from him. It's a very structured, methodical approach where every single activity builds on the last to create deeper levels of safety, connection, openness, getting stretched, but all in this beautiful container. And there's specific skills, like meditation is one of them. We talked about it's the quintessential masculine practice. And so as its own skill for guys to learn there and then hopefully take home with them, because that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to do with the retreats is really teach practical shit. Like really things that guys can have enough time under tension in these. Like if we just do one, I don't know, meditation practice and there's a structure to it and it's all very thoughtful. Okay, they might get one skill, but then they'll probably forget it. But if you're doing a meditative practice 1 to 2 times a day, every single day, and everything is progressive that builds on the last skill, it's like you've had 6 at bats of that one tool, and then you might have a video after or get a recording or whatever. Your ability to feel confident enough to take these things when you're there and integrate them in your life is going to be so much greater. So guys who come get exposed to a whole sort of different practices, modalities, but it's not just throwing things to throw things at men. Like that's one of the things that I enjoy most about collaborating with like you and Johnny is also our energies work really well together and our hearts and our intentions are right in the right place and feel really good. And it's remarkable what happens in the course of such a short amount of time when it's held in that way. That is the most important thing that I do. Create the container, do my damn best to hold it, and to just let the rest happen. And within that, again, there's a lot of structured things that we do. Sweat lodges, breath works, meditation, story work, your archetype work. We'll be doing parts work, but largely it's an initiation experience filled with just super cool men.
Beautiful. So if people are interested in May's retreat, where would you like to direct them?
So my website would be great. So mikesalemi.io. And then there's a tab that says for men. And then if you click retreats, you'll get all the information on this one, which you'll be facilitating at. And then also we'll have one in September that's more nature based. So that would be the best place. And I would love if you're open to it. Would you mind sharing at this one what you're bringing to the table?
Yeah.
Maybe unique from other ones that even if guys we have some repeats for sure, but I would love to hear that too. And for how you have that share.
Yeah. So what we'll be bringing this time around, in the past, we focused more on the archetype wheel, which is incredible, lots of fun and very much a crowd pleaser. But, you and I spoke and we said, we want to go deeper this time. And so this time we're really going to be honing in on the 4 survival archetypes and taking a deep dive into some more constellation work, parts work, and working with some unconscious contracts. So we're going to go kind of more like an inch wide, but a mile deep into some of these core areas rather than kind of doing the overall wheel, which is fun. But we're going to go a lot deeper into some of that work this time around, which I'm super excited about. So aside from the retreat, anything else in regards to your work that you're really excited about, new offerings, anything else that you'd like to share that you have coming up, or, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Even when you were just sharing about the retreat real quick, like I'm sure like a lot of your listeners like love the depth, and that's why they listen to you and your level of just meticulousness and depth and care. And I want to be clear with people, like we've got guys that come to this stuff at all levels who have done zero work, and it is deep. Like we're there to help initiate. Like we're there to do good deep work, and it is so goddamn fun. Like the energy that just naturally happens. You'll be in 1 second doing some deep stuff like, whoa, that was a lot. Or like, I really felt the shift in that, or that really, wow, I cheered up, cried, whatever's there is all welcome. And then literally a minute later, it's going to be belly laughter. And I just want to encourage anybody, if you're listening to us and you're like, wow, this is heavy stuff, or this, I'm afraid, or I'm nervous. Great. Bring that too. And it's a hell of a lot of fun. So know that. And then also what I like to say, man, it's like, okay, yes, this work can be uncomfortable. Yes. But like, what's more uncomfortable? Like living in the same repetitive patterns that are not getting you the result that you want in your life, and creating a bunch of unnecessary, I don't say unnecessary, but shame and fear, all like, what's harder, that or fucking stepping in with 20 guys who literally they got no skin in the game. They don't even know you. And yet they still want the best for you and want to cheer you on and want to have your back. So it's deep, and it's really beautiful. And then, other things, I'm starting to do more work with executives, founders, or I'd say high operating entrepreneurs. And I've got a new offer that I just recently launched, and it's called the Executive Edge, that I'm super pumped about. It's not, let's say, coaching based. There's very little coaching in it, but it's more about installing an infrastructure in these men's life so that the ambition that they're running at and the drive that they have, their body can come along for the ride. Because most men who have high aspiration, high drive, want to kick ass, take names, amazing. And usually their body or their relationships takes the toll because they've prioritized that. It's usually like whatever we prioritize gets our attention. So if we prioritize winning in the business domain, not always, but most often of what I see, the downstream consequences, other things get neglected. And most of these guys have already so much on their plate, high pressure, high responsibility, a lot going on, that adding programs and walk 10,000 steps a day, work out 3 to 5 times a week, send me pictures of your diet, that is so overwhelming to an already overloaded system. So what I've done in this offer is really looking at a man to how they're operating already, and really not really adding much at all, and just enhancing how they're already moving. And it's way less of like, it's more of either subtraction or what can we meticulously personalize to you so that you can get more out of your day or how you want to live, but also not feel so burnt out or wrecked after. So that might be a timing thing. As an example, instead of drinking coffee right when you wake up and going to the phone, trying to postpone coffee for an hour to 90 minutes after waking, right? Instead of going right to the phone, wait 20 minutes, eat some protein or get your eyes in the sun for 5 minutes. So it's less about adding a whole program and all this whole list of responsibilities, meeting guys where they're at and enhancing largely what they're already doing and getting the fundamentals down packed. And at first, when I was coming up with this, I was like, oh, doesn't everybody know this? And I was like, no. The more that I started digging, I was like, wow, like the fundamentals and the basics, but done exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Like exceptionally well. So the most high leverage things that a man can already input into his life and not feel like he's having to do a whole shit ton more.
Beautiful. And so where can people find out about these programs?
So I will put it on my website. I just literally launched it via an email list. So I'll have it on my website soon, and then I'll be sure when this comes out to have a web page for that. So the offer's fresh, and I'm super pumped about it.
Beautiful. Mike, thank you so much for not just coming on the show, but being a friend, a brother, a teacher, and just coming at this work so open-hearted. Any parting messages, anything you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah. Yeah, really the invitation to take time to be with your heart. Whatever that looks like. taking an extra breath before you speak, noticing your tone of your voice, taking 5 minutes of stillness with not even the objective, but just the honoring of your heart. However that looks, that's my invitation and reminder.
Thank you, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And thank you to all the listeners that joined us on this beautiful conversation. Please check out Mike's work, check out Meta Movements. You will not be disappointed. Mike is the real deal. So, Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, brother, thank you.
Aho.